Thank you, Chairman Lukemeyer, and thank you for holding today's hearing. I think this is very important, and as I think we just can't lose sight of the fact that there are too many families who have lost loved ones as a result of fentanyl poisoning, and this is very, very helpful. I reached out to sheriffs in my district to get a sense of what's happening in Western North Carolina on this very issue of fentanyl, and what their deputies are seeing as they're out. And so I got a response from one of my sheriffs in Iredell County, Darren Campbell. He said since the beginning of this year, his deputies have saved the lives of 18 people using Narcan to counter the effects of fentanyl-laced narcotics. Okay, so fentanyl-laced narcotics. They didn't think that that's what they were getting was fentanyl. And you're shaking, yes, I see. So along those lines, I've got a letter for the record, Mr. Chair, without objection. I'd like
without objection.
But this is a troubling and unfortunate trend. And so this hearing today is about following the money and the impact we can have on cutting off the flow of money, because that is the key ingredient that is necessary for the drug trade to actually flourish. So, Mr. Cassara, you know, the criminals are pushing fentanyl. You know, we focus on what we see in the immediate, not who's providing it, what's on the backside of this thing and the international drug trade. So in your book, in CCP Incorporated, I'm not here to show your book, but apparently I am, you note that federal law enforcement tends to focus on participants in the product rather than the money. So how do we incentivize following the flow of money?
Once again, an excellent question. The criminals are motivated by profits, by proceeds of crime, not the criminal activity themselves, not the narcotics, not the product, but the proceeds of crime. We've talked about following the money for years, but we've never really actually done it. I've talked before about having to change the incentives for law enforcement to get them to refocus a little bit. I think there's two ways we need to do this. The first way is to look at this at the macro level, because the concerned government agencies and departments need to kind of make this a priority in their strategic plans. They all have strategic plans, 5-year plans. Metrics need to be established, and perhaps the budgets could be contingent on making or meeting those metrics. At the micro level, if you will, Don knows better than I do today that law enforcement is statistics driven. Statistics drive everything from budgets to promotions. That's also why some of these bureaucracies kind of play games with the numbers and statistics. They go after the people and the products instead of the money because, quite frankly, it generates better statistics. Yeah. And it's easier.
It's easier to go nab a person rather than to get into the system of how this works. To that system question, Professor, how do we hold China accountable for the flow of fentanyl?
So we know in terms of taking a look at trade movements, they have to get paid. And we haven't really sanctioned, and more importantly on a broader piece, naming, shaming, and the asset forfeiture piece have been the most instrumental tools that we've had to go after the Chinese, but more importantly, we have to increase that activity. We've been doing it very well against the traditional Mexican cartels and the Colombian mafias that have been pushing cocaine for years. This is an area where we need to also raise, answering your question from before, to make the financial crime bear the same weight and penalties as if it were that you were trafficking a person, or they were looked upon as white collar, right? Financial crime has always been looked at as there's no victim. All of us are victims, and it's the oxygen that allows these armed groups to flourish, and they are killing our people.
In our sanctions regime, we are the power. This committee is the power behind our sanctions regime here in the United States. And we have a traditional role in sanctions. We name names here in the United States. We have a due process right for those that get on those lists, and we hold them accountable. And that is really key, part and parcel of our regime, is to actually be explicit about who we're holding accountable. But thank you for that encouragement. That tells us that we've got work that we need to do as a Congress. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I yield back.